You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis, Wright.
Car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with The Attorneys of Hollis Wright.
And welcome. You are watching The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin. On this show, we are breaking down one of the most misunderstood laws in Alabama, the legal issues in Alabama, drug laws. Is marijuana legal? What about hemp? We're going to talk about that because you may have seen the headlines, the hashtags, even the billboards, but the laws just seem to keep shifting, but the consequences are real. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But first, we want to remind you that attorneys for Hollis Wright are standing by right now, and you can reach them. All you have to do is scan that QR code on the screen, or you can call 1-844-LAW-TALK for a free confidential consultation with one of the lawyers. And joining us to talk about this is criminal defense attorney Wakisha Hazzard. We thank you so much for being with us. And of course, we got from Hollis Wright, Michael Eldridge.
Art, good to be with you.
Good to be with you,
We've
buddy.
got Wakisha. I think this topic, I'm very interested in it. I feel like since I graduated from law school the last 10 years, we have seen, not just in Alabama, across the country, especially with marijuana and the decriminalization of marijuana. And of course, some states have decriminalized it radically, and Alabama has probably on that scale come along slower. And I think what happens with that is that when that timeline doesn't go so radically, that throughout time we get confused about where we stand with all of this, and that's why we brought Wakisha Hazzard on. I've had the pleasure to work with her, not in drug cases, thankfully, but her practice spans so much. She's so knowledgeable that she's come over and been involved in some of my cases, and always a pleasure to work with, always very bright, on top of things. And so glad to have you here. And kind of tell the viewers about you before we get into this subject and your practice.
Definitely. So, of course, my name is Wakisha Hazzard, and thank you all for allowing me to be here today with you. But I have a criminal defense, family domestic firm in downtown Birmingham here, where I help people that are charged with felonies or misdemeanors. And then we also do some divorce work, some family court work, and we work on some civil cases as well, which is how you and I work together.
So you said that misdemeanors and felonies.
Yes.
In the scope of drug laws, I know everybody's heard that was a misdemeanor crime, that was a felony crime. I think most people understand that the misdemeanors are not as severe as the felonies.
That's correct.
As it relates to drug laws in Alabama, what constitutes a felony drug offense?
So a felony drug offense is going to be any offense that's going to carry with it over a year and a day incarceration in prison. And of course, a misdemeanor offense is going to carry 12 months or less. Misdemeanor offenses are normally held and tried in city courts, municipal courts. Sometimes, depending on who arrests you, it can be tried in the county courts as well. And then felony cases are going to be the higher cases. So as far as drugs are concerned, we're looking at unlawful possession of a controlled substance, unlawful possession of marijuana in the first degree, trafficking cases, possession with intent to distribute type cases in the drug arena. Those are felonies, and they're going to carry a higher penalty for prison incarceration.
Like Michael was saying, there's so much has changed about drug laws in Alabama. Let's start with this marijuana. What's legal and what's not, because it's also confusing to so many people. What does the law say about marijuana? Is it legal in Alabama?
Okay, so recreational marijuana is not legal in Alabama. Alabama recently passed a law as far as medical marijuana is concerned, but it's been a really slow rollout with the law. So we have to be careful when we're thinking about marijuana. Of course, recreational use is just for personal use. You're just smoking marijuana because that's what you want to do. But when you have someone that may have cancer or certain illnesses, there are certain physicians that can prescribe hemp products and products that contain THC to help that person with their medical condition. So smokable hemp is not necessarily legal, but consumable hemp is legal. So products like gummies, oils, drinks, those can be legal, and those can actually be prescribed by a physician that is able to prescribe those types of things for maybe a patient that has cancer or that has a severe illness. But recreational marijuana is still not legal in the state of Alabama. There's also something called Delta 8 and Delta 10. And those products are also not legal in Alabama anymore. They were at one point because they were being sold at small grocery stores and gas stations. They are no longer legal, and anyone that is found to be in possession of Delta 8 or Delta 10 products can be charged with a Class C felony. And so there are different ranges of punishment for marijuana. If someone is in possession of marijuana for personal use, that's going to be a misdemeanor, and that is a Class A misdemeanor, and that'll be unlawful possession of marijuana in the second degree. But if someone had a prior marijuana in the second degree offense, and then they get caught again with marijuana, then that increases the penalty, and they're looking at a Class D felony for unlawful possession of marijuana in the first degree. So you have to be very careful when you're possessing marijuana because it's not legal here. The first time you get caught with marijuana for personal use, you're looking at a misdemeanor, but the second time you get caught with marijuana, even though it may be for personal use, you're potentially looking at a felony.
Michael, if I can follow up, what about jail time with that? We know misdemeanor, felony, what's the jail time with prior and also first time?
Okay, so first-time offenders, normally you may not get jail time because that is a misdemeanor, and there are several programs that the courts now offer. So we have drug court in the state of Alabama, and that really helps with possession, especially for the first time. And then if we have someone that's young, someone that is under the age of 21, they can also be ready to get youthful offender status. They can be eligible for that type of status. And what that does is that seals the record for somebody that is a minor, under the age of 21 here in the state of Alabama, and that might have been caught with marijuana for the first time. So misdemeanor, you're looking for less than 12 months, but you do get a suspended sentence if you plead guilty to a marijuana charge, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. So you're always going to get a suspended sentence, and then you'll get some type of unsupervised probation if it's a misdemeanor marijuana. If it's a felony possession marijuana, then you're probably looking at supervised probation with that suspended sentence if it's your first time. And they're looking at the amounts normally. So do you have a lot of marijuana? Is it in individual bags? Do you have a scale in your car? So they're looking at a lot of external factors, and they're looking at the totality of the circumstances to determine if this marijuana was really for personal use or if it was actually to sell or to distribute to other people.
Yeah, I've always actually kind of wondered that because you hear all the time, and I don't do criminal work. I am married to a prosecutor, and so you hear all the time about possession, and I want to talk more about that, probably after the break, because we hear about the person had possession they got picked up for possession of marijuana, and then we hear about possession with the intent to distribute, and I've always wondered, why can't you just say, well, I was just planning on using it recreationally? Like what goes into the police, because I think viewers need to know that these other factors that would go into distinguishing between that was for recreational use or that was for distribution purposes, because it seems like the penalties there are going to change greatly. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, we definitely can.
All right, we're going to take a break right here, and Michael has put a pin on it. We're going to discuss that when we come back. As we go to break, we want to remind you, though, you can reach someone at Hollis Wright. Scan that QR code on the screen or call 1-844-LAW-TALK for a free confidential call with one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas, such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law, such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis, Wright.
You're watching The Attorneys, and we're diving deep into Alabama law on drug laws. And we've got information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We like to keep you informed about the topics that we're discussing, so we'll put that information there. Also want to remind you, you have time to reach an attorney at Hollis, Wright. All you have to do is dial 1-844-LAW TALK for a free confidential call with an attorney at Hollis, Wright. Or you can scan that QR code at the bottom of the screen. Michael, when we're going to break, there's something that you wanted to come back with and talk about.
Yeah, she touched on it, and I've thought about it every time I hear it. When somebody talks about intent to distribute and felony possession and what differentiates those things, the elements of those things that people need to know about, that what the police and prosecutors are looking for in terms of charging these offenses as, felony possession or, possession with intent to distribute. I don't even know if those two things are distinguishable.
They
but,
are.
In terms of exactly, and I'm sure it goes to the weight of a lot of things, but what we're looking at in terms of what amounts to possession and the type of possession.
Yes, sir. So as far as felony possession is concerned, that is simply possessing a drug that is illegal that you should not have. So if it's a controlled substance, it's having maybe Xanax or Lortab pills, a narcotic type of pill on you that you do not have a prescription for. So that would be unlawful possession of a controlled substance. But if you hypothetically had 500 pills, or you had an excessive amount of marijuana on you, in addition to maybe some baggies and a scale, they being the police, look at the totality of the circumstances to determine what they're going to charge you with. And if they see these other factors, they see baggies, they see a scale, they see that maybe this marijuana is individually packaged and it looks like it's for sale, then you're looking at an intent to distribute charge. And depending on the amount of drugs that you have, you could be looking at a trafficking charge. Depending on, are you crossing state lines with drugs in your car, you may be looking at a trafficking charge. And so trafficking is a Class A felony here in the state of Alabama, and possession with intent to distribute is a Class B felony here in the state of Alabama, whereas simple possession of a controlled substance and possession of marijuana in the first degree is a Class D felony here in the state of Alabama. The penalties for all of those have different ranges. So with a Class D felony, you're looking at a year and a day to 5 years as far as the imprisonment time is concerned. And then for Class C, you're looking up to 10 years. Class B, you're looking up to 20 years. Class A, you're looking up to 20 years and maybe even life, depending on what type of priors you have. So in Alabama, Your range of punishment is determined by several things, including your prior criminal convictions. So if you have prior convictions, then that is going to make your range of punishment higher. You're either an in-prison recommendation or an out-of-prison recommendation. And your defense attorney and the prosecutor will work on the case to determine what that is.
All right, you know what I'm learning today?
What's that?
Is that the intricacies that go into these drug offenses and the facts, all the way from intent and the amount and the circumstances are way more complicated than I thought they were. You know, I mean, I think most of us think about this like he got picked up with drugs. What kind of drugs? This kind of drugs. We don't ask these questions about state lines, and this is why it's so important. Right, because the people are getting charged with these crimes all the time, and the level of detail that I just listened to, you can tell that it's like you better have somebody. Don't call Michael Eldridge if you get picked up with a drug crime. That's not my specialty. That you need somebody that knows exactly what to be looking for, because I can imagine how difficult this is on the police or the DAs who are professionals at this to charge these correctly with all the factors that go into it.
Which is why we partner with people like Wakisha and bring her on the show to add that expertise. And he's talking about the particulars of it. Let's talk about THC, Delta 8, hemp. You know, can you differentiate those?
Yes, you can. So normally if someone's picked up with drugs, when you are charged with that crime, the state is going to request a toxicology report. Right? And so in that toxicology report, they will be able to determine if that is marijuana or some other substance that is illegal. Now, normally, because the police have special training, they can tell with their eyes if they're looking at marijuana, because marijuana has a specific type of smell. And they also have field tests, so tests where they can test to see if this is heroin or if this is cocaine. So there are tests that they can perform at the site. We always need to remember, too, that the police have to have probable cause to stop you. So why are they stopping you? So that's another way that things can be challenged. As far as Delta 8 and Delta 10 are concerned, they used to have some legality here in the state of Alabama, but that has now been outlawed. That is no longer legal, because there's a difference between smokable hemp and consumable hemp. So smokable hemp is going to be more of what they would call flowers that, goes into like a cigarette type apparatus. And then consumable hemp is going to be oils, gummies, THC. But now the smokable hemp, of course, that is illegal. You cannot have that. Delta 8 and Delta 10 are also illegal. And you can no longer possess that, nor can the stores here in Alabama sell anything that has Delta 8 and Delta 10 in there. So we need to be careful, because I believe some of those things may still be on the shelves. And so the citizens need to be careful that they are not actually buying something that is illegal, because if they're caught with it, just because the store might have sold you a product, you still would be arrested for that if that is illegal. So we always need to be careful, and we want to forewarn the citizens about that, because what if some of that is still on the shelf?
Yeah, I can only imagine with that, just with the law changing the way that it is, and at least from Alabama's standpoint, changing rather rapidly, that that these stores may think that they're doing something that's legal, that maybe they're doing that is technically not legal, and it creates a quagmire in terms of understanding all of these things. All of this is fascinating to me, because we're not talking about marijuana just simply how I remembered it as a kid, right? I mean, she just named off about 15 different products and ways to consume this, and the way that the law treats them. And so this is changing both legally and out in the real world. And so learning all this is so important.
Can we talk about, when we come back, what to do in terms of defending yourself if you're caught with some of these illegal substances? Definitely. As we break down these drug laws. Stay with us now. We are continuing to talk about drug laws here in Alabama with Wakisha, but we're going to also remind you that there's a way to get in contact with an attorney at Hollis, Wright. We told you that's what we do, is give you good information. We scroll it on the bottom of the screen so you can find out the topic that we are discussing, but also how to get in contact with us at 1-844-LAW-TALK for a free confidential call with one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright. We'll wrap up this discussion on drug laws when the attorneys returns right after this.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys, and we're talking about drug laws. And I want to remind you that scrolling at the bottom of the screens, we've been giving you information about the topic that we're discussing to keep you informed. Also, follow Hollis Wright on all social media platforms, on X, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You get great content there, and also find out about some various legal information there that would really be helpful for you. And Michael, as we come back, we're in our last segment now. We went into break talking about what happens and how to defend yourself.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing, right? Now that we have a better understanding of the law, we understand that the law is changing, understanding that we have rights, and that in terms of being charged with these or being alleged to have committed these crimes, what do you do? And that's what she's here to help us with. Wakisha knows what you should do in those situations. So explain to our viewers, in a situation where you're being charged with a drug offense, things to think about.
Yes. So the first thing you want to think about if you're ever charged or even stopped, I want to go back to the arrest if we can very briefly. So if you are stopped, of course, the police need to have probable cause to stop you, but you may not necessarily know what that constitutes at the time. But you need not give a statement to the police, so you don't want to make any type of incriminating statements that can be used against you in court. You want to take note to see if you've been read any type of Miranda warning. Have you been Mirandized at this stop? And all of these are things that you can tell an attorney. So my ultimate advice is to make sure you contact an attorney before you get to court so that you will have someone there defending you and you will have proper, competent, knowledgeable representation like myself if you're charged with a crime. So always contact an attorney. Be careful about giving any type of statements. And you want to look for Miranda. Was that ever read to you? Were you ever given your Miranda warning before you actually made a statement? Because then you may have a suppression issue that can be brought up. But the biggest advice is to not make an incriminating statement and to contact an attorney if you are charged with a crime before that first court appearance.
And with the Miranda thing, that's something I do know about just from law school. But a lot of people don't understand is, a lot of times people get arrested, they don't read you your Miranda rights because they don't care about any statements, right? Like they already have the evidence to prove their crime. But if once you get into custody, if they're going to use something you said while you were in custody, they have to first read you those rights, that you do not have to talk to them. You do not have to incriminate yourself.
That's right.
And so being cognizant of that, of where you read those rights, and I think a lot of times they make them sign that they read their rights, but I could be wrong about that. And so that timeline is very, very important in terms of what you say. But I think from listening to your advice is just don't say anything.
That's correct. Don't say anything at all.
And I would struggle with that because I usually I like to talk my way out of things usually. And in those situations, people that have my personality need to suppress that personality because you don't want to end up in that suppression hearing and not being able to get rid of some incriminating statement that you may have not known at the time was incriminating, because I promise you in that situation, you want Wakisha talking for you once you get to court, and them not using something that you said at the scene. Let me ask you this. I hope nobody gets arrested for a felony drug charge, but what does that process look like after you've been charged and now it's going to the district attorney's office or to the prosecutors?
So after you're arrested and you're charged and they've screened your case will go to district court, which is the lowest court in the county initially, and you will have what is called an initial appearance first, and then you will have a pretrial date or a preliminary hearing. At that preliminary hearing, what happens is an officer or detective is called into court to testify as to the alleged facts of what happened and how they got to this particular person and arrested them for drugs or this particular crime. And after that, the judge will decide if there was enough probable cause that this person might have committed the crime, and then the case is bound over or waived to the grand jury. And then from there, you're indicted and you will go to a higher court, which is called the trial court and circuit court. But if you are a first-time offender, there will be other options that may be available to you. And those options, like I mentioned earlier, would be drug court, and that would be one option. If you're under the age of 21, youthful offender status may be eligible to you. Or you can eventually just take a plea and be placed on probation of some type of form if you don't have a whole lot of priors in your background.
I assume that with these types of offenses, there's some level where there's a lot of prosecutorial discretion about how to proceed with these things. I mean, it's not like strict that if it's this, then we have to, sentence you with this. And I think that's important for people to know too. Like she talked about drug court. I hear about drug court all the time. That's something that the state has set up for these situations so that we're not putting all of the, everybody that's charged with a drug offense in jail. And so it's a very, very good option.
And it's so important that they get in contact with someone like Wakisha, because we're talking about the type of charges that can affect your life.
That's
Education, your job, your family. So they need to talk to you. And what's the steps that you take in terms of defending them at that point?
Yes, sir. So once we get a new case in, what we will do is we will sit down and have a very detailed meeting about what happened. We will talk about some of those things that we spoke of earlier. Did you give a statement? Were you read your Miranda rights? Did you sign anything? How long were you held in custody? That type thing. And then we would go to court. And before we go to court, I usually reach out to the prosecutor for that particular court. We talk with the prosecutor. The prosecutor will let me know this is what we're looking at based on these circumstances. This person has no priors. This person is a youthful offender age. Maybe this person is a nurse or somebody in the medical profession. We need to make sure we protect those people's rights, because that could affect their entire life. They can lose their medical license. They may not be able to practice medicine anymore. We've had that situation come up. So it's time for the attorney and the prosecutor to talk, to really negotiate the terms so that we'll know exactly how to help you.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, this is why I love the attorneys. Is I most of the time when I'm sitting here, I'm learning things as an attorney that thank goodness that our audience can learn along with me, because that was a lot of information, but very, very informative. So thank you, Wakisha.
All right, Wakisha Hazzard, thank you. And we also want to thank you for joining us where you get the information here, where we make the law make sense here on The Attorneys. Make sure you join us next week, same place, same time. We've got another great show lined up for The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.